Hello, I am Crystal Petrie, and you are watching another episode of the Crystal Petrie podcast. On today's episode, we are going to learn all about organizing, but not just organizing when it comes to moving your shoes or your socks, but we're going to learn about organizing on an emotional level, on an intellectual level, and even on a love level. And here to educate me and you, we have Rebekah Love herself. How are you, Rebekah?
Hey, what an intro. I'm doing awesome. Thank you for having me here.
I'm so excited. You are the first podcast guest that I've been able to use their actual name in the intro. So,
Okay, I love
yes.
it.
So, Miss Rebekah, where in the world are you?
I'm in New York City, Staten Island to be specific.
All right, on the East Coast. All right, on the East Coast. So you are here to talk about organization. But
Mhm.
like I was saying in the intro, it's not just organization as maybe we would think of it, making sure your shoes are put up or your socks are put up or you have things, what things bring you joy, things like that. You organize, yes, you organize with that as well, but I feel like you organize on a deeper, more spiritual level.
For
Would
sure.
that be correct?
Absolutely. Yes. It's more than just stuff. It's
Right.
holy, especially for us.
Uh-huh. Right. So let's my first, well, I guess this is probably my third question at this point. How did you get into this space of organizing?
Well, it started when I was a kid. Um, it could have been when I was playing Sims that inspired me, or watching uh, Hoarders with my mom, or Extreme Makeover. It was little bits and pieces of my childhood that piqued my interest for home. So I've always really been fascinated and interested in helping people declutter and just get our home. So it started out as a kid. That's where my interest kind of sprouted.
Okay. With people's homes, what room or what area would you say that you've seen is normally the most cluttered?
Mm. It's definitely, this is a hard question because sometimes the space that's the most cluttered is different from the space that people want to work on the most. But
Hmm.
the most cluttered, I would say, is the living room.
Okay, and why is that?
Well, it's like a hangout, dropout, and I think because it's one of the bigger spaces in the room, so it ends up becoming like a drop off station, storage room, kind of not really sure what to do with it, because typically a living room is to hang out and relax and watch TV and be with friends and eat. And so I think in this busy world with a lot of people working and apartments and homes being smaller, because a
Mhm.
living room, the function is to hang out, it ends up becoming like a storage place and just a holding space, because it's this one of the bigger spaces in the home. So that's why I believe the living rooms usually gets cluttered, and mostly because it's a shared space. So everyone's stuff is in it.
Mhm. When when should people reach out to you?
Mm,
Like,
mm. Can
is it, yeah, go ahead. When should people reach out to you?
I just before I went, because I have a potty mouth, so I just went. So now I won't curse because it won't be authentic. But I think when people are like, when you get like super tired of your stuff, like where you're like, I'm so tired of myself. I'd like, yeah, like when you're really, and that's usually when we all like want to make a change, is when you're like, I am tired of this. Like, I want everything to go. That's usually a good point to reach out.
What would you think would be some ways to help people stay organized and stay decluttered within like their living room and their homes?
Yeah, it definitely starts with adapting organization as like a
Mm,
lifestyle, but also just adapting as like knowing your why. Why do you want to keep your space cleared? Because that's
okay.
usually that's helpful. You get grounded in what you're saying no to, when you're saying no to shopping, when you're saying no to yourself, when you want to buy something and you're like, I don't know if I have space for this. Oh, I don't have space for this. So knowing like why you're keeping your space cluttered, like is it because you have play dates, is because you want to spend more time, with your partner in the living room and not have to look at stuff. You want to spend more time with family, like knowing why you want to keep your space decluttered, it helps to say no to things that make a space cluttered.
So,
Um,
so the first part needs to be your why.
yeah, like why do I what am I using my home for? What do I want to do in here?
Hmm.
What is it
That's
for?
I am sure you have seen, as I have seen, and I'm sure my audience has seen, like this viral movement of like cleaning.
Yeah.
And so I feel like with most viral things, it's like gone overboard because they will like pour the milk out of the milk container into another container,
Mm-hmm.
or they will pour the juice out of the juice container into another container, or
Mm-hmm.
they will take the fresh strawberries out of that container and put it in another container. I feel, is it just going overboard? Like, can we leave the milk and the juice and the strawberries in the original containers and still be organized?
You definitely can leave it in the original container. Now, me, I'm gonna do both. Sometimes that's called you're just decanting your food, and I don't think it's on the surface. I don't think it's anything wrong with like moving things and putting them into new containers. But the overboard part that you're talking about is when it's just less about, I don't know. Look at my stuff, look at how I keep my space pretty, which is
Mhm.
cool. Just, I think it's a very like kind of like look at me, look what I have, you know. And I think that's great. I don't think it's anything wrong. Not great. I don't think it's anything like on the surface that's wrong with that. But I think what ends up happening is people think that that is organization. That's the only way to organize. That's the point of organization. Is the prettiness or the yeah, sometimes that look, because it's a very specific look, and I think
Mhm.
it's a very specific look, and you don't have to have that look. You don't have to do those things to be organized. And that's the only way to organize. Organization is really about having less things and clearing your space, having clutter free.
Mhm.
Uh, so the overboardness is people who maybe have more space to have more containers and have more things to do. And there's people in apartments or people with smaller spaces that like, or they have refrigerators where those containers can't even fit in their fridge. So now they feel like I can't even be organized because I can't get the containers because my fridge is too small. And it's like, yeah, but that's not the only way to be organized, and that's not really what, for me, that's not what organization is about. It's not about just the pretty.
Mhm.
So I hope that makes sense.
Yes.
I really want to preface like I will decant my stuff. I'll put the milk in another container, like for sure, but it
Mhm.
doesn't start or end there. So I think
Okay.
that's the difference.
For you, what does organization look like and feel like?
It feels light. It just feels peaceful. Um, it feels almost like a way to kind of say thank you to God and just be grateful, like for my space and keeping my space neat and clean because I'm grateful to have a home and I want to honor the home and I want to treat my home in the highest regard. Just like how they say like adorn yourself, like that's how organization shows up for me is saying thank you and keeping things in order and not letting things get dusty and things like that. And so organization, that's what it looks like for me. Yeah.
Okay. What are one or two things that you can share to help people, like tangible things that you can share to help people stay organized?
Mm. I would start with one room, and I know a lot of people say this, but start with one room and try to keep that room as clutter free as possible. I think when you are able to establish boundaries within one space and saying, this is the space that's going to be clutter free. It helps to create a clutter free home because you're like, okay, let me build up the practice and the habit to keep this space free. So, practical, focus on one room and focus on decluttering that one room until it is no longer a difficult thing to do, and then move on to the next rooms. A second thing is to find your donation, where you want to donate things and how you want to donate. So maybe, and what that, and keep that to be the main way that you donate. So maybe it's, if you're bringing things to Goodwill, that's your go-to. If you are going on Facebook, buy nothing groups, that's your go-to. Just commit to, how do I declutter things? Where am I bringing my things? Um, and that is how you're gonna like easily be able to say, this is where I drop things off. I have bags of things to take out of my trunk. I already have that place that I'm going to drop my things off. So knowing where you're going to donate things and focusing on one room to declutter and keep clutter free.
I remember, and this was years ago. I'm a Oprah fan, like an Oprah stan. I love her. And this is when she still had her show, Rebecca. So this is maybe, I don't know,
Oh my God.
15, 20 years ago. Like it's been a minute.
Right.
She did a show about organizing, I think. And she said, kind of to your point of, get you one room, get that room organized, and then kind of move into other spaces. But she was saying, get like one, her thing was the bed. Like if you could wake up every morning and make your bed, then that would lead to other habits of keeping like that one room clean and then expanding to other rooms in your house. And she said that whenever like your bed is made, it gives you like a joy and a peace that
Absolutely.
you were able to accomplish that one thing.
100%. Absolutely. And it's the same. When you feel like you can maintain one thing, it builds your self-trust and your confidence. Like, okay, now I've established this little tiny habit. Okay, now I can add on to that and move on to building other habits as well. So yes, making your bed, 100%. I would say another thing is like taking water bottles out of your space. Like, I know I see that happen a lot, folks, we want to be hydrated, and sometimes you don't finish the water bottle and then you start drinking from a new water bottle. So maybe not starting a new water bottle if you haven't finished one, and just recycling water bottles.
Hmm.
I don't know what it is about cups of water and water bottles that tend to clutter bedrooms a lot, like a lot. It's very interesting. It's a
Yeah. It seems like, especially when it comes to like clutter and uh disorganization, I don't even know if that's a word,
Mhm.
but it starts like small things like the water bottle build up or the cup build up. Like it starts with small things that you think are inconsequential, and then before you know it, you're like, where's anything up in here?
It's so crazy because when I go into a space that is very clear, this is years of, not tending to it, and there's everything is everywhere all at once. I always start with trash. And trash is one of the things that you'd be so surprised how quickly it clutters a space and how quickly it can clean a space. So yeah, those small little things. And I would consider a bunch of water bottles to be closer to trash. It's just once you finish the water bottle, it's gonna go and recycle. So always attacking trash. It's very easy go to, and though you're right, those little things add up. Like think of your wallet, like you have like one or two receipts, and then you keep adding receipts. Next thing you know,
Yes.
you got a wallet full of receipts and business cards, and you like, what is going on?
Yes.
So just literally taking out so taking out a category, that's usually what we call it, right? Like water bottles is a category, paper receipts are a category. So it's like, what's the one thing that I could identify that is a lot of, and then remove that, and you'd be really surprised. All of that movement adds up to a space being cleared.
Right. I know, Rebecca, when you and I first spoke, and we spoke for a good little while when we first spoke. We had a good time on that phone, on our virtual chat. As you were talking about organizing, it felt like to me that for you, organizing is more than just a physical thing, more than just, making the bed, cleaning the living room, cleaning the kitchen, things like that. It's a whole body experience. It's a mental, it's a spiritual, as well as physical thing when it comes to organizing.
Yeah.
So I want to touch on some of those topics. The first one I want to touch on is spiritual organizing. What does that mean to you, spiritual organizing?
I want to go back to the why. Like,
Okay.
what am I doing this for? For me, in addition to kind of saying thank you for this space, when I think of my spirit, what's really important and nourishing for my spirit is to be able to be and exist and laugh and be enjoyed with my friends and family. Simply us enjoying one another, enjoying each other's company. And so being able to have a space where they can easily come over, where we can enjoy ourselves and enjoy one another without clutter being a barrier to us connecting, without that shame and that embarrassment that may come with clutter, that may prevent me from having them over or wanting people over and being isolated rather than being connected and in fellowship with the people that I love. So spiritual organizing for me is like thinking about like that why. Like, why do I want a clean space? Why do I keep my space clean? Who is this for? Why are we doing this? And so and what is nourishing for me? And so in addition to a clean and organized space, just feeling good, and it just feels good. My spirit feels nourished when I'm able to be with my family and just hang out with my daughter and play, and she just gets to have friends over. And so when I'm organizing, I know that I'm going to be able to, my spirit will be nourished when things are in order, and when I could just be and simply like exist with my family. And
Mhm.
another like practical like perspective is something I do every week is I make sure like I do my daughter's laundry and I put her clothes, I set her clothes out for the week. And so what that does for my mental health, that is me saying like I care about you, and I care about your well-being. I care about you having less things to think about. And so for me to cut off decision fatigue, like that's me feeding my spirit. That's me tending to myself and saying like, I'm doing something. I'm organizing her clothes. I'm looking at the weather. I'm looking at her school calendar. I'm putting her outfits out. I'm putting them by the day. So now throughout the week, I'm taken care of. She's taken care of, but this also takes care of me.
Mhm.
That's kind of how that's how I connect the dots between spirituality and organization.
Okay. How can someone find out, or maybe they need to incorporate um, areas in their life where their spiritual life is disconnected or unfulfilled?
Well, it's important to think about like what you need as an individual, like what feeds your spirit.
Hmm.
And so that may look like praying in the morning, meditating, and so surveying your space and thinking like what part of this space will help me to feed myself spiritually. What can I do in this space to make it easier for me to replenish myself spiritually and feed my spirit? And so, yeah, starting small too. Like, okay, this is an empty corner. Let me get this chair from the living room. Let me get me a little blanket and a pillow and a lamp and a end table.
Hmm.
And boom, there you go. You got a little meditation corner or a reading corner, a place where you can pray. So I think knowing what you need first, um, and then surveying your space and seeing like, oh, this is a opportunity for me to meet that need.
How often do you think someone should engage in acts of gratitude and thankfulness when it comes to their spirituality and their spiritual organization?
Oh, I mean, every moment of every day, of every second of every day. Just, I mean, just being able to say thank you. And it's easier said than done. And some of us have it down packed a little more than others.
Mhm.
Some of us could do better. But I think just being able to say, like, Tabitha, Miss Tabitha, Auntie Tabby, like before she
Right.
uh, a fork in her mouth. Ooh, we thank you, God. Like it doesn't. If you don't believe in God or whatever, you could just be able to say thank you for every action that you do. So every moment, every day, but
Hmm.
especially in the morning when you get up because you
Yeah.
woke up.
Right. And again, it's like, how are you starting your day? Like
Yeah.
starting with good habits, whatever that looks like to you, if that's meditation, if that's prayer, if that's singing songs, whatever that looks like starting your day that way.
Yeah, this is why I talk about habits, not only with my clients, but also in my membership program in Bold. Just you have to build the habits that's going to be able to sustain to sustain the organizing systems you put in place, right? Like we said, organizing is a lifestyle, right? Like this is deeper than stuff. This is about your spiritual well-being, your mental and your physical well-being. So it's a whole holistic um view of like what you're doing, like your output and your input as a person. So those habits are really gonna like help you be like, okay, I got it together, I got this little corner together. Now what habit is going to support this or gonna stunt it and make me like go backwards? So yeah, those habits. Yeah.
What do you think, Rebecca? Because as I was getting ready for our interview, one of the things that I saw was that whenever people, and I guess they were mainly referring to hoarders, like whenever people are like just have stuff everywhere, what is shown is never what it is. So, like all the clutter, all the hundreds of magazines, it's actually something deeper than just, my goodness, your house is a mess.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. This is why I specifically focus on like African Americans because I think a lot of us are, underdiagnosed and maybe even overdiagnosed with deeper issues and it shows up as clutter. And I always say, trauma shows up as clutter for sure. Again, especially within our community. This is another reason why I want to go back to school to get my master's in mental health counseling or just clinical psychology to be able to speak more just more sharply to those specific issues. I can't say that I've worked with folks who were clinically diagnosed or had a diagnosis, but I have noticed with all of us in the most extreme cases and even the mild cases, we're always fighting to hold on to a memory, to hold on to an experience, to hold on to something that is not currently happening and it just shows up in us not being able to let go of an item or even sort through an item. Like I am struggling to sort through this pile of photos because it's making me think of my dad who passed away and I'm still processing that experience. And so for all of us, it really is never about the stuff. It's always something else. And
Hmm.
some of us it is something practical, but 9 times out of 10, it's like something that you are fighting to hold on to.
Right. And it's just showing up as clutter or, however that looks like.
Yeah, for sure.
What
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about having or creating a spiritual community?
So I went through a rites of passage a few years ago
Mhm.
with a community called Sal. And Be the Tree was the name of the program. And so that's the closest to a spiritual community of Black women specifically that I have been a part of.
Mhm.
I've since been not as connected to the community to some members individually. So like my best friend, she's a part of Be the Tree as well, or she went through Be the Tree as well. She actually recommended. But yeah, so that's the closest that I've been. But in terms of like in my day to day, I wouldn't say I'm connected to a spiritual community of folks, but I should. I should be. For sure.
Let's talk about physical organization, but more than just, of course, clean out your living room or things like that. When it comes to physical organization, does that also incorporate like physical fitness as well, like being organized as far as working out, eating healthy, even if that's just walking a lap or two?
Well, when I think of habits, I do think of those physical activities. Like we all need to be doing something physical throughout our day. When it comes
Hmm.
to physical organizing, I think in general, organizing is very labor intensive. It could be.
Right.
But when I think of physical organizing, I don't necessarily include physical activity like working out and things
Hmm.
like that. Again, when I'm talking about like habits and building habits, physical activity comes up, but not necessarily with like physical organizing, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes, absolutely. How does having a clean, organized space support like health goals?
Mm. It's so much that goes.
Your face. Listen, my Apple podcast listeners, they can only hear you. But listen, if you're listening to this podcast on my Apple podcast space, please switch over to YouTube so you can see Rebecca's facial
I
expressions.
don't even
They
know.
are given everything.
I'm
They are
sorry.
given.
What facial? I don't even know what face I made. I think of that. So I first think of oh my god, it's just so the first thing is like
Okay.
the obvious. When a space is cluttered, it's debris, it's more dust, it's more
Hmm.
dirt. And so all of that like gets into our body, gets into our lungs. Like who knows how that's impacting the way that we speak. Like I said, our lungs. I also think like the stress, oh my goodness, hypertension, like the stress of walking into your space and tightening your body is tightening and not feeling good about it, not being able to relax. You going from one hell to another. You going from one chaos outside to another chaos. Like that is just going to amp up the stress. And we all know like hypertension, like all of that, high blood pressure, like is like directly connected to stress, especially within our community. So when it comes to like our physical health, clutter really impacts it. And even we're talking about physical working out, what motivation, like to the motivation to get up, to go to the gym, or even having like the space in your home to work out, it's just a barrier to having good physical fitness and having that wellness that just is well rounded. So, I mean, when it comes to clutter, it is a direct connection to our physical health. Not being able to prepare the meals that you want to prepare that are nourishing, right? Just not having the counter space to do the chopping, to do the juicing, or if the counter space is too crowded, it's like I'm not pulling out my juicer. Juicing's already hard. Making a smoothie's already hard. So now
Hmm.
I got to figure out where I'm gonna get the space. Now I got to clear the counter. So it just creates unnecessary like barriers to be able to like take care of ourselves physically. In addition, when the clutter is there, it impacts us like physically, the way that we speak and how we choose to get up is it's harder to work
Yeah.
out and to feed ourselves physically when there's clutter everywhere.
You
So
touched on this a little bit, Rebecca, as far as organization or not having organization in your home, how that affects your energy level. Can
yeah.
you talk a little bit more directly about that aspect?
Yeah, it's like a vicious cycle because you don't have the energy to organize or clean. And then when you do have maybe a spurt of you get energized to do it, then that depletes your energy because you are not only having to sort through so many different things, but you're also touching these items. All of our belongings, everything, there's an energy to the things that we have, whether it's our direct memory or the energy from someone that had to deal with that item. And so you're touching all of these things and that's impacting your energy. It really could be it could suck the life out of you, decluttering for years and years without actually getting anywhere. So the energy that gets transmuted from our stuff to us, where it's directly connected, and being able to break that cycle is really difficult because you need to organize, you declutter, you get tired from decluttering, and then you declutter, and then that tires you, and then you get overwhelmed, and so just your wheels are always turning. So it's depleting for sure.
What about, we have heard the term, especially in the last probably 10 years, accountability partner, accountability partner. What about having an accountability partner for your organization, for keeping the home clean? Is that something that is out there? Like, are people doing that? Is that something that we need to create as a society? What are your thoughts?
I love that you said that. One of my members in my program actually suggested accountability partners. And so, yeah, when you join my community, you also get paired with another person who is also decluttering. And so, absolutely. And I think if you hire a pro organizer, they usually are a stand in to hold you accountable, to follow through on the plan that you have to organize. Or even if you have like a house cleaner, they could be a stand-in to help you, hold you accountable to keeping your space clean. But in my program, I have specific, like, this is your accountability partner. We call them cousins. This is your cousin. You all are going to hold each other accountable, but also get that support and be able to show up in a way that's like, okay, you're going through the same thing that I'm going through. There's no need to be ashamed. So if you join the boat, you get yourself an accountability partner,
Right.
especially for your decluttering journey. So very needed.
So, Rebekah, we talked about this earlier. You're not taking on any new clients right now. You have kind of your hands full with the clients that you have now. But if people just kind of wanted to follow, get some tips, I know you have a website that people could go to the website and just get some information. And perhaps whenever you are accepting new clients, I would assume you will put that on your website. What is your website?
It is organizedforlove.com. And I actually just put up a page of all my resources when I talk to folks on Instagram and people that are like, hey, I want to work with you. I may ask them what they need help with, and I'll refer to them one of my resources. So I just put a web page of all my resources. Most of them are free. Some of them are just accessible or affordable digital products to help you get organized. Maybe if you're dealing with a resistant partner. So on my website, organizedforlove.com, you can find different resources to help you get organized.
Absolutely. Excellent. Let's talk about emotional organization, which, I mean, when you start talking about emotions, it's just like, again, here we are again. Uh,
Here we are again.
how often should people reflect on their emotions or like take time to check in on themselves?
Mm. I definitely think daily for sure. And I also think some of us could fall into the trap of getting a like self-improvement loop, and you just kind of get stuck in like self-improvement, reading self-improvement books, and you get stuck in student mode. So I do think it's important to be introspective and learn and take inventory of what's going on in your heart and your mind, and listening to the lessons that are being thrown at you, whatever spirit, whatever universe, whatever is trying to get your attention. I do think it's important to stop and listen and take note of what you're trying to what your spirit team is trying to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to not get trapped in that cycle, because sometimes you could just be like, I can't do this until like I fix this part of myself, or like, and it's like, so I think another part of self-improvement is finding joy, finding pleasure, having fun, doing things that feel good. And sometimes that can have nothing to do with like a self-improvement book or program. It's just like, that's how you heal as well. So I hope that answered that question. Because
Yes, yes. What about emotional triggers? How can people figure out what their emotional triggers are? Because people, they're always saying, that's a trigger, that's a trigger. But how do you figure out what your emotional trigger is?
mm, I know I made a face. I saw myself make the face. I'm always gonna be a proponent for therapy, for talk therapy, psychotherapy,
Hmm.
all the therapies. I'm like, yes, talk to someone, because I don't think we talk about our feelings with a professional enough. Even if
Hmm.
it's your pastor child, talk about, even if it's the auntie. So talk, I think talking about your experiences with someone that is in a different place than you, or someone who has more experience, or someone who has grown in the area. So finding someone to talk about your experiences with, and being open to, specifically to learning about yourself from that person, or open to getting help, to learning about, like, maybe I'm missing something, maybe I could have done something differently. Oh, maybe the reason why I do, or understanding why you do things. So I think, yeah, maybe that I'm always gonna be talk about therapy, but just the way people can really have more self awareness, is, yeah, talk therapy,
Hmm.
or talking to someone about your experiences to get more insight, for the intention to grow. So yeah.
So a lot of people, when they clean, it's like an emotional release. They're
Hmm.
clean and it makes them feel better. It helps them get rid of the chaos from work or the chaos from the day. So talk to us about that. How cleaning and organizing or even washing dishes can help you emotionally as well.
Well, first of all, it gives us a sense of control. So
Okay.
automatically you're feeling good about yourself, because you're just like, child, I can't control my boss. I can't control my toddler. I can't control what anyone else do, but I sure can control these dishes being clear. So it feels good to kind of to reclaim and to get a sense of power. And so that just you feel
Mhm.
empowered by taking control of your space. And I think that's one of the reasons it feels so good, because it's like, okay, I got my shit together. Okay, I could do something.
Yeah.
Okay. The job may not have gotten back to me yet, but at the very least, I can do this.
Yes.
Yeah, that feels good. That's why it feels good.
I've never heard it put like that it's a matter of control, like having control over something in your life.
Yes. And I think being able to redirect that energy to yourself and what you can do, a lot of people
Mhm.
may choose to redirect that to other people. Hence, maybe your boss is micromanaging you, they don't have control, or they're choosing not to have control over their life, and so they may try to control others. And I think it's really empowering. And it says a lot about a person to say, I'm going to redirect. I don't feel like I can control certain things, because none of us could control everything. And so
Right.
turning that attention to yourself and what you can control is really empowering. I think it says a lot about a person.
How important is it when it comes to emotional organization? Of course, we've talked about like the physical organization, the spiritual organization, but when it comes to emotional organization, how important, this is a two-part question, Rebekah. Number one, how important is it to encourage yourself and recognize like the things that you've done well? Number one. And how how often should someone do that?
Every second of every moment, child. Like me and you
Uh-huh.
have Leo in your astrology chart, in your chart.
Hmm.
I'm a Leo moon, Leo Venus. Baby, I need so much validation. I'd be sick of myself. Like, I just need validation. I need to be appreciated. And so I think bigging yourself up every moment,
Hmm.
like, you did a good job, but you're doing a good job. Like, that is necessary. Knowing the level of validation that you need to keep going and keep doing things, especially in your home. Um, very important. I'm sorry, I only answered one part of the question. Katie said the
That's
other
okay.
part.
No, I actually think you answered both because I wanted to find out about like the importance of the self validation, the encouragement of yourself, and how often you should do it.
Every moment, child. I think sometimes when you start to become aware of how nasty you are to yourself, how mean you are to yourself, you realize like, oh, I actually have to make it a intentional effort every moment to talk
Mhm.
nicer, to talk to myself nicely. Sometimes when you start to tune in to like your inner voice, you're like, God damn, that bitch is mean. Like,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
like, wow, I'm not nice to myself. Like, I do not talk like this to people. Like, I could just be so nicer. And so that's why I say every second of every moment, because if you're not tuned in, you'll miss like how mean you're actually being to yourself, how discouraging, and just like, why are you so mean? So
Right.
second, be nice. Every second of every moment, just check in. Like, you doing great. I love you. You're doing an awesome job. You're doing great. You see that thing that you just did there? You're a good person. Good job. Job well done, sis. That's
Hmm.
right. Good for you. Look at what you just did. Because other than that, if you're not doing it for yourself, you're looking for other people to do it, and that's a wrap. That's a losing game. Um,
Right.
it's a losing game. So, and even asking, I saw a clip of Lauren London. I can't remember. I
The
think
actress Lauren London.
the actress Lauren London. I
Hmm.
think she was on. Maybe she was on Angie Martinez. I'm not sure what podcast she was on, but she was saying how like she's in constant prayer with God. Show me that you love me. Show me that you love me. And
Mm.
so today I was needing some external validation, but I wasn't getting it. And I had to not only get it for myself, I was like, I think I need a little more than what's coming from me. And so I was like, oh, I thank you, Lauren London. So I started asking, like, God, show me you love me. Show me you love me. Show me that you care about me. Show me that I'm loved. And I'm like, oh, I like that. I like that because now it's you and God pouring into you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, just to piggyback on something you said a few minutes ago, Rebecca, sometimes like when my friends are like verbally negative about themselves, like they're down in themselves,
Mhm.
you know, I will jump in and I'll say, don't talk about my friend like that. You
Mm.
know, don't, that's my friend you're talking about. Don't talk about her like that.
I love that.
You know, to like, because sometimes people are doing it so much habitual, you know, something you were talking about earlier, it's a habit that, you know, you're just, man, I didn't get this done, I'm not going to get this promotion, you know, this person said this, I should have said this, you
Yeah.
know, and you're so in the mind frame of just talking bad about yourself
Yeah.
that if like an outside person just quickly interjects like, that's my friend you're talking about, don't talk about her like that, that's my friend you talk about, don't talk about him like that, it kind of jolts you back to, oh, yeah, you know, I am just really like beating me down.
Yes. And I feel like specifically for like women, we're trained to be especially critical, self-critical of ourselves. And it's really crazy to like see as grown women, like how, like you just said, seeing your friend, you just like, all right, because now I'm about to fight you because you talking to my friend. Okay.
Right, right,
And
right,
it's crazy to see like how unkind we could be to ourselves. And so yes, see other people be kind to themselves, you're just like, especially a loved one, you're like, not in front of me.
right,
I
right,
love
like,
that. I'm gonna start saying that. I love that.
yes,
I'm quick to stop a friend, like, all right, let's calm down. And I appreciate it when people, like, I was talking the other day, my husband, he like interrupted me. And so I already told you I'm a Leo, so I didn't like that. But he was like, full stop. Like, I think I need you to stop. Whatever you're saying, you're actually, what was I saying? I was saying something about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to work on. He was like, I'm gonna stop you right there. Actually, you that's not true. You actually don't need to work on that.
Wow.
Not true at all. Like that's not even true. And I was like, wow, thank you so much. You just saved me from like months of like trying to self-study this thing that I already was studying it.
Mm-hmm.
I just found out after the first time. I was like, yeah, I need to work on that. I started to work on it. He's like, yeah, no, you don't need to work on that. That's actually not true about yourself. You can stop. And I was like,
Right.
wow, thank you, because I definitely was going down a little rabbit hole.
And you will go down a rabbit hole and you don't even realize it. And it really goes back to, and I think with what your husband did was a perfect example of that accountability person. Somebody that can just jump in there and be like, nope, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
That's not true about you, or you're taking it too far in this situation.
You're taking it too far. Yes. No, being a good friend like you are, stopping your friends, having that person. And I think when you only want to have people that see you and know you, because people that see you, know you, and care for you and actually like you, they're
Mhm.
able to stop you in your tracks and to say and be a mirror to be like, that's not true. This is what's true.
Right.
I'm telling you is true. And so having those special people in your life to that know you enough to be able to be like, yeah, no,
That's
baby,
not what it is. That
you're
is not what it is. You
I
are wrong. Yes, you are wrong.
who lied to
Um, how difficult, and I would assume that in your line of work, it probably is it difficult for people to ask you for help as far as like organizing their home and probably directly or maybe indirectly organizing their life?
mm,
And how can people get out of that? Because I feel like, especially when you have clutter in your home and probably clutter in your life. I know I was reading something, and I'm gonna get to the question, I promise, Rebekah. I was reading something and they were saying if your car is cluttered, it's a direct extension of your life being cluttered. So, how would people get past maybe the embarrassment of
mhm.
reaching out and asking for help? Cleaning out their car, decluttering their home, and directly decluttering their life.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a tall order to ask someone to like organize your life. And people have asked me that, and I've tried to take it on when I realized, like, oh, baby, I cannot declutter your life. Like, I actually, because I'm trying to declutter my life too. There's things that I need to clear out as well. So I think like the better approach for me is like, okay, I can help you with this specific area or this specific thing. And so it is challenging for people to ask for help, even sometimes clients, like as I'm helping them, they'll try to still step in to help me help them. And it's like, well, I don't need your help.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have an organizing assistant to help.
yes.
I'm helping you. But no, I think it's really challenging again, especially for women, because I think there's a vulnerability. I can't remember if it was a video I watched, but there's a vulnerability to needing help. Oh, the book, The Big Leap by what is it, Gay Hendricks? Have you read it or heard of it? The Big Leap? Oh
I
my,
have not.
absolutely love it. I'm reading it for the second time, but so I don't never mind the book, but in the book he was talking about how asking for help is it makes you vulnerable, and so that vulnerability builds trust. And I think we're just in a world where people we don't trust each other, and so how can I first of all be vulnerable, let alone ask you for help? Like I don't trust you. And so that's really the biggest challenge is finding somebody you can trust and then getting over the fear of being vulnerable, because most times we feel like if I'm vulnerable, I'm going to be taken advantage of, or I'm not going to get what I need, or it's going to be a waste of time. We don't want to be vulnerable. We want to protect ourselves, right? That's where we're still kind of in that like archaic like mindset of like I have to protect myself, like,
Hmm.
and rightfully so, we're in a world where you do have to protect yourself and it closes you off. So to answer your question, it is challenging. What I try to do is just show like, hey, you could trust me with you can trust me with your vulnerabilities. All I'm going to do with them is help you to organize. Like that's I'm here to help you sort and organize through this specific space or this specific thing. So it's definitely a challenge, and it's been easier. So I don't have as much of an issue with people coming to me asking for help, because I've built such a brand to share like, hey, you could trust me with this information. You could trust me with your heart. You could trust me with your secrets and that shame that you're carrying, you can trust.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Okay, we've been talking for almost 52 minutes now, and I feel like we just started.
I know.
I feel like we just started talking. OMG. Okay. So we have talked about physical organization, emotional organization, spiritual organization. What is there like a journal or a book or something online that people can start using to help them organize the different areas of their life? For example, one of the things, you were talking about was meditation and being thankful, making sure you're doing that every day. Encouraging yourself, making sure you are doing that every day. What is a tool or a resource that someone could use, go out and purchase, or maybe it's a free download where they can go in and start that organization in their life and in their home?
Can I do a shameless plug? Because everything you're
Yes.
saying, I have the tool. Okay, so my
Okay.
home organizing workbook helps you to not only organize your space, but also we're talking about habits. So the first part of the book, we're doing the foundation of like, what are the habits that I need to work on to be able to have an organized home? What is the one habit that I'm going to focus on in the next 66 days? There's a habit tracker in the book, and there's a example of different habits that are really complement organizing really well. So the workbook, we starting off the bat. Off
Yes.
the rip. And so just like my programs, just like my brand, everything I talk about, like what are the things on the inside that is going to help me to declutter on the outside? Like we're doing both at the same time, because I'm speaking to those folks who like, if you're like, I've been decluttering, I've been started to organize. I did the hack. I got the Amazon find. It's still not organized. Then it's most likely like deeper than stuff. And so the workbook is helping you sort through those things on the inside, while also teaching you how to get organized with like some of my expert tips that I use in homes. And so my workbook, yeah, it's called the Mood Workbook. that is
Okay.
that's the tool, baby.
And give us, it's on your website, correct?
Yes, yes.
Give us your website again where people can go and get that resource.
Yes, it's organizedforlove.com. And when you go to organizedforlove.com, not only will see you'll see it on the homepage, but you'll also see it in the menu bar. It's like the second one. It's the workbook.
What is your intention in this space of organizing? And as I stated earlier, when we first spoke, we were talking about organizing, but I felt for you with the organizing, it was deeper. It's a deeper level than just like the physical cleaning the living room, making your bed, organizing. It was the spiritual part of it. It was the emotional part of it as well. What is your intention in this space, Rebekah?
Is to bring African American families together so our homes are rock solid. So now, as a diaspora, as a collective, we can come together and commune and be a solid race of people. That's why that's why I created Organized for Love, to really show African American families like, hey, this is the freedom. This is what happens when you clear your home of things that are not serving y'all. Y'all can come together and love each other and connect and build a solid foundation. So now when you go out in the world, your home is solid. And so now think of what would happen to us if all of these different African American homes were solid. So that's why that's what we're doing this for.
You know what? That's an amazing thought, because if all of the African American homes were solid, I believe it would lift every aspect of our country. It would lift the economy, it would lift society, it would lift culture, it would lift everything.
I mean, it will really be a game changer
Yeah.
to it'll be a global ripple effect. And I also believe like we got to start small.
Mm-hmm.
So on the surface, it looks like I'm talking about home. Well, not really. Most people know I'm not talking about home organizing, even on the surface. But it's a home organizing company, and so that's where we're starting. But really, um, baby steps, one home at a time, one person's mindset about their clutter at a time. Start with your clutter, and then you help your kids, help your partner, you help your family. Now you inspire auntie so and so to get it together. Now you're inspiring grandma to get it together, and next thing you know, we not dealing with stuff like this is we dealing with other problems. Like, let's remove the problem of stuff. Like, how is this an issue? Okay, it's a
Mm-hmm.
big issue. All right, so let's address it. But really, it's to get that stuff out the way, the literal and figurative stuff, so we can now focus on other bigger issues, like stopping these like fake gender wars and just dividing us and having these fake arguments in the house. Not fake arguments, but like it's really a not. We're fighting, but we're not really like fighting about that thing. So
Right.
let's remove the pile of clothes out of the way. Let's remove this problem. Let's eliminate this problem so we can focus on the real issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Well, my final question for you, Miss Rebecca Love, who do you think would make a great guest on the podcast? But you have to help me get them on.
Okay, so I'm thinking of my doula who helped me with with our daughter Savannah. She's amazing. She's a doula. She's just amazing. I think she would be awesome for the podcast. She talks about similar things that I talk about, but through reproductive justice and all things woman. So Savannah, I believe her name is Savannah Brown.
Oh my goodness. I would love to have her on. First of all, I've never had a doula on the podcast,
Ooh,
and
good.
that thought never even occurred to me to have one on the podcast. Wow. Yes. Please make that happen. I need to get her on this podcast.
Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna get her. I'll text her.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I hate to say bye to you.
I know. I do. We just got started. Like, Lord have mercy.
I hate to say goodbye, but we are at our hour. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for being on my podcast and just really educating me and educating my audience about organizing, but not just organizing on the surface level, because it's so much deeper than that. It's so much deeper than what we see as just shoes and socks and stuff everywhere. It's so much deeper than that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I do feel like there's so much that we didn't get to touch on. So maybe part two. Because I'm like, wait, I didn't get to say that thing. I didn't get to like I'm like even the mental health within our community. I feel like that is a huge like pain point for us when it comes to like our stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, so maybe part two. But this was
Yes.
wonderful. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And to my audience, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. You can get Rebecca's podcast and all of my other podcasts on YouTube Podcast and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.